I did a bit of community theater when I was a kid in the Seattle area. Um, my sister started up with this little theater company, um, and so I would go see her in plays, and I thought that looked pretty fun, and maybe I could do that too. So I did a bit of that when I was a kid, and then I kind of lost interest in it, and um, it wasn't really till college I found some I don't know, some people who were doing what I thought was interesting stuff, kinda crazy stuff that I was like, let's so, kinda, I don't know, avant-garde type stuff, which I was pretty into, and so a lot of my college experience was dedicated to, making experimental theater, and that kinda continued into my, post-college once I was out in the world. I don't know, I was never particularly ambitious about doing other stuff, but you also are like, "Well, I don't wanna be a temp forever."
Right, right, right,
So,
right.
it's so
Yeah,
gotta find some way to make a living and,
yeah.
so you get lucky here or there, and I mean, that was kinda my way in was really, I was interested in, theater as an art form and yeah.
I love to hear that, it looks to me like at least the last, 10, 15 years, a bulk of your career has been in, on screen.
Yeah.
Um, but I was listening to an interview recently with Denzel Washington, and he was saying, "You learn how to act on stage." Like, you learn how to act in the theater, and so I'm not surprised at all that that's where you
Yeah.
started. And even something like experimental theater, like, that's not even, our
Yeah.
classic typical work. I
Yeah.
think it's I agree with him, it's like, that's where you learn how to act, and, the experimental stuff, the improvisational stuff, the now we call it, like, devised theater,
Yeah.
um, that kind of thing. I'm like, I feel like that's where actors find their voice,
Yeah.
whenever you have the opportunity to create yourself, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, Now I was looking through your credits, and like I said earlier, it looks like I know looks can be deceiving. It looks like you've been working very consistently for the last 20 years or so.
Yeah,
But
God,
to
doesn't always feel that way.
right,
How's
right,
it
you know what I'm saying? You had one episode here or there, and then you had a recurring on Blue Bloods, and then Billions. Seems, at least from the outside looking in, seems like your breakout. How did you stay patient until that moment?
man, I don't know how patient I was, but I definitely there were plenty of times when I thought, "Okay, now I'm really going to send in my application to grad school and do some other thing with my life." And, honestly, I just was always saved by something came along and I was sucked back in. Um, e I also always had other stuff on the side, I think. I mean, theater is a big part of that. Theater takes and it doesn't necessarily show up because it's you do it and then it's gone. There's a record of it somewhere, but, the record is like, "Yeah, this was a production somewhere, and here's the cast."
Right.
Yeah, and, it's also I kind of think of it I lived through an interesting period where when I got to New York, for example, I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone for
Sure.
years after I moved to New York.
Mm,
It wasn't that time yet, you know? Once sort of like 2006, 7, 8, things really started to online things started to happen more, started to take over more of the culture, and then when smartphones happened, that shifted things in a big way. I mean, I I think I arrived in New York anticipating a different kind of future, which was more like, you were talking about Denzel, like there was a kind of path that used to exist and maybe still does to some degree, but where, you would start in the theater, you would get some jobs in maybe TV or film. Most people, it used to be just film. Working in TV was a little bit, déclassé or something.
Yeah, it's not that's
Um,
not what the stars did.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
certainly that's totally flipped,
Yeah.
uh, by this point. So I feel like I kind of lived through this transition that the culture was going through, and in a technological sense, but also, theaters. Um, I know theaters also had to transform, and it's not. It's
Yeah,
going
no,
through a
it's
tough
different.
period itself. It's hard to
Yeah,
compete with all the everything that's screaming for your attention all the time. Everybody's got one of these things to entertain them.
right in your hand.
Hey guys, thank you for checking out The Actor's Instrument on YouTube. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a beat. You can follow us at Actors Instrument Podcast on all social media platforms. Till next time, y'all. Peace.